Man like Mark Sullivan, the Warrior yourself. Stay tuned for the thrilling episode. Woo!
A positive mental attitude can clear away all obstacles which stand between you and your major purpose in life.
This is the Snowboard Project featuring Mark Sullivan and the Beat. The Snowboard Project. The Snowboard Project. The Snowboard Project.
Welcome to the Snowboard Project. I'm Mark Sullivan.
And I am the Beav, and super stoked on today's interview.
Why are you so happy, Beav?
Because I really like this guy.
What do you mean? I think you got a man crush?
Kind of, man. He's like one of the most stoked dudes in snowboarding, wouldn't you say?
Okay, I would definitely agree with that statement. He is like super stoked.
He's like so passionate about snowboarding. He's super fun. He's the nicest dude ever. You know, you can just call him up and he's going to answer the phone. And it's going to be like yesterday that you guys were hanging out, you know?
Yeah. And so who is it?
It is Kinger, Rob Kingwill.
Yeah. And so Kinger, he was like a sponsored, right? Came from Jackson Hole, grew up in Jackson, and then became a competitor. He spent his summers working at Wendell's and, riding the Mount Hood half pipes in the summertime. Became like what you might consider a pipe jock. Did the Grand Prix series. He actually won a Grand Prix championship. He also won the 1998 US Open, which at that time, at that time, I would say it was still, even despite the fact snowboarding was in the Olympics at that point in time, the US Open still had the crown as the most important event in sport.
Were you announcing that event at that time?
Matter of fact, I was.
No way.
Yeah, I've been at this for a while.
Wow. So you announced it back in what you said, 97?
98, yeah.
And then Kinger went on. He kind of got into big mountain riding, right? Did really well.
I mean, that's kind of the natural progression. It's like if you're going to be a dedicated snowboarder, you're going to follow this path of progression. And so, where do you go from riding jumps and pipes? Well, you want to ride powder. It's a little bit softer, easier on the body. Right. And so, Kinger has been to he's been to Tailgate, Alaska, what, 7 or 8 times?
Yeah, I want to say like one of the coolest things that I think Kinger did was he won a North Face Masters, right? And then he steamrolled that money and bought like this old like 99 like Skidoo 700. Put it in the back of a U-Haul with Mike Bassich, and they drove up and they met us in Valdez, right?
I think that was the very first tailgate, right?
Yeah, the first tailgate, and they slept in the back of that box truck.
No heat whatsoever. They're like, oh man, sleeping on metal sucks, because they were like had their sleeping bags rolled out on like just the metal bed of like a U-Haul.
I was like, these guys are so well,
cool. You could rent an RV for $100 a day or a U-Haul for $19.95.
Right. Yeah.
So it's obvious, right? Spend the money on the helicopter. Sure. Chatter your teeth to sleep, to yourself to sleep at night with your teeth.
So anyway, so what are some of the things that you talk to Kinger about? Okay,
so I talk a little bit about his competition career. He's actually still rides pipes, still does all sorts. Right. I mean, anything snowboarding. Kinger's all about it.
Stoked on snowboarding.
Yeah, and then he started this thing called the Powwow, which was kind of like where it was a gathering of board shapers, designers in Jackson Hole, and so originally it was called the Powwow. Today it's called the Shapers Summit, and so he changed the name based on what's it called?
Cultural appropriation.
Appropriation. Like he realized that, okay, it's like, I'm not a Native American, and so therefore maybe powwow might be a little bit insensitive to Native American people.
Right. So anyways, and he's also he has a face mask company, Avalon 7, right?
Yep. He makes face masks. He anything snowboarding, basically, Kinger is all about it. So he's still an inspiration to this day, still super stoked on the sport, loves riding powder, and has this Shapers Summit. And actually, there's a website where they have videos talking about all the different powder shapes and all the different shapes of snowboards. So that's pretty cool. Something like Shapers Summit, 1 S in the middle. SHAPERSUMMIT.com.
Okay.
That was a tough one, man. I felt like I was in a spelling bee there. Okay, so let's roll into this one. This is an awesome episode. Kinger.
All right. Episode 27.
Rob Kingwill. Today I'm talking to Rob Kingwill. Rob, where are you right now?
I'm just hanging out at the parking lot here at Mount Hood and watching Danny Davis start up his crazy-looking adventure mobile. We've been camping for the last 3 days. We just got done with doing the rat race. Drink water. They raised another like $40,000 for at-risk communities that need water and better sanitation. And we had an insane race. It was so fun. Harry Kearney rolled in, hadn't been snowboarding all summer, showed up day of, beat everybody, and pretty much left this morning. So,
Yeah.
you know, that's how it's going. I've been sleeping in my car for the last 4 days, and my back's starting to lock up, but we're going to go shred some half-pipe today.
I thought you were like... I thought you were like a veteran, like you'd be camping out at Trillium Lake with like a nice thermarest or something. Keep you comfortable.
Yeah, this year's a little different. They allowed some camping in the actual parking lot here at Timberline, and it's nice to be up on the mountain. Usually that is exactly what I do. I got a nice spot down at Trillium, and we've been going down there on the daily and taking a nice dip in that beautiful lake and trying to rinse off all the salty gnarliness that you get from shredding all day.
Yeah.
Nothing like being 90 degrees and wearing snowboard pants, you know?
Yeah. So how cold does it get there at night? I've never actually stayed up in that parking lot.
Yeah, it's probably hitting the 50s, you know, nice sleeping temperature. Got my windows rolled down.
Sweet.
And it's good. It's not like being down low. The first night I slept driving out here, it was way too hot. And it's been really, really comfortable. And the stars are absolutely stunning at night. Being under Mount Hood and in the land of the volcano, looking around like the sunsets, everything. It's just like, it's a glorious place to be.
Yeah, I mean, I would go out there every summer. I would camp at Trillium. I haven't been in a couple of years, but it kind of made me jealous when I heard you were camping out at Mount Hood. I mean, that's one of my favorite summertime memories from growing up and even, you know, into my adulthood, you know, is spending time at Hood and camping out there. Who else is camping out in the parking lot? Like, what other kind of riders camp out versus staying in hotel rooms?
You know, I think pretty much everybody at the race is camping out this time. I'm looking at Chase Josie right now. I got Tim Humphreys, Nick Baden, and Kyle Mack, who just won or got second at the Skull thing a couple days ago. Mm-hmm. The only ones, I think Terrier and Russell were down in the valley, you know, like being old and stuff. It's nice to have a bed when you shred every day and you're over 40. Yeah. But
plus, it's closer to the Rathskeller.
Yeah, Rats and Charlies are a nice bonus for those of us. You know, all Brian Fox and Austin Smith and everybody else is up here.
Cool.
So yeah, we had this massive community all camping out in the parking lot, and just it's cool because you can really feel the vibe of snowboarding and people that just love being here in the summer and riding snowboards, and then that's kind of what it's all about. These events are really about the community coming together, you know? Yeah,
totally. And so, you know, you're about 20 years past your prime if you consider that winning the US Open, but you're still competitive, right? You raced yesterday. How'd you do?
I raced yesterday. I ended up 18th. I was 2 seconds out. I was feeling pretty good. Like I feel really good with how I rode, and it was kind of like definitely in it to win it. This course it has a lot of obstacles in it, and there's a lot of chances to make a mistake. And I definitely made a couple yesterday where it was like
okay,
off the bubble there. But yeah, still in it, and you know it's like a lifelong dedication to snowboarding and things like the rat race. Actually, just it's kind of like a motivator for me. About 3 weeks ago when I signed up or whatever, I was like, I'm going out there. Like, I got to ride my mountain bike. I got to start stretching. And it's just kind of the good, you know, like thing in the future to work towards so you can really be on your game. And it's a cool way to do it as far as getting some motivation. Even if you're just going to survive, you're at least, you know, like pushing it and trying to get yourself ready to go.
Okay.
Do the best you can right here.
Yeah. So how about some choice words for the people who beat you and then some words of advice for the people who lost to you?
Let's see. Choice words. Max Worthington, he's pretty much the man because he actually beat me riding switch. He beat a lot of people riding switch. and did it with so much style. So I just, high five for him, and for Harry, who has always been my hero and is one of the nicest people on the planet. I ask him every time, like, how are you so fast? Like, what is it? And it's like in his genetic makeup. And I think it's just, it's like, I'm like, you might as well keep winning, my friend. And, the rest of us will just have to be happy with second. And, for those that lost to my ancient self, better luck next time. Yes, I don't.
Yeah, you know what though, like that, the camaraderie, you can feel the camaraderie. You congratulate the people who beat you, and you kind of rub a little salt in the wound of the people who lost, just to get them more motivated for next time.
If you're not first, you're last, so it's kind of like irrelevant. It's if you're anywhere in the pack. I mean, we were all within, I was 2 seconds out, I think, this time. And in that course, that actually was the spread was pretty good. And it's all about the camaraderie and not getting hurt. And this course especially is like one of the funnest to be around, because like the oohs and ahs at the top are hilarious, because people are either like just greasing a line and landing so well, and everybody's like, oh, that was sick, or they smash themselves into the front of one of the whoops, and you hope they're all right, and you're like, oh my god, oh, is he okay? And it's constant the whole day. People are just like, whoa. And it's an exciting race to watch.
Yeah, definitely. But the course isn't set up where it's like those old border cross tracks where if you do come up short, you're going to just suffer a critical injury. It seems like you get hurt. It hurts, but it's not like, okay, get the body bags. Have the body bags ready.
No, not quite. We had one older gentleman, I think he was over 50. He broke his collarbone in it. And had a couple other people stack up pretty hard, and I'm sure they're sore today. But when we built the course, I came out like 3 days early and helped dig and stuff, and we had some extra gnarly things installed for a moment, and then we chose to go and like sew them back in because it was just too much, or it's like, I think this might take people out too bad. So it is all about fun, and like the whole mind the whoops, that thing. It's all about who can pump them the best and be really on the ball the whole way down. And it's summertime slushiness. Everything changes a bunch too. So like every run, you're like having to instantaneously adapt to the conditions as you're off your line just a little bit, and everything changes a huge amount. So it's a really fun race for sure. It's always kind of like, I just say, whatever it is that Harry's got, if he could bottle that up, he could definitely be a rich man at this point, because he drove like 20 hours from Telluride, really? Didn't snowboard at all, and just showed up and won the whole thing. Just like, dude, Harry Curdy, you are a boss.
So let me ask you this. If you win the race, are you having the most fun? Because if it's all about fun, and second place is the first loser, does the winner have the most fun?
I'm pretty sure Harry had a lot of fun yesterday. It was his birthday too. So we had this, all sorts of things going on. It was Friday the 13th, and it was Harry's birthday, and there were some weird things going on. There was kind of a weird vibe because there was a rescue on the top of Mount Hood. So there was search and rescue and giant helicopters in the parking lot. And, you're like, there's a triple at the end of the course that was pretty aggressive. And every time I rolled around like the last bank pointing it at the triple, I was just like, oh man, I don't want to hurt my, I don't want to get hurt. Definitely like rolling the dice on Friday the 13th. But, Harry he rolls up and he is so solid, and he's just like, hey, yeah, I'm here. This is going to be fun. Yeah, cool. He's never like super, ever even looks competitive. He's just hanging out like, hey guys, I'm going to drop in. Okay, see ya. And you're just like, wow. And he's riding this last round. He's riding like a giant Jones Mind Expander. So it's like this giant nose on this super soft board. And you're just like, dude, that's a powder board. What are you doing? I don't think he even like whacked it. He just crushed it. So I'm sure that's fun for him somewhere, just to be like, yep, I'm that guy.
Okay, sorry, I had to plug my stuff back in here. I'm running out of power too, so go figure. Anyhow, let's leave Hood for a second, and it's been a while since you've done an interview, and maybe the younger kids aren't as familiar with you as I am, but clearly, just by that talk about Mount Hood, you're a snowboarder by definition. When did you start defining? What was that moment when you started defining yourself as a snowboarder more than just someone who snowboards?
Oh man, as a snowboarder more than somebody who snowboards. I think, I became a snowboarder the day I actually set foot on a snowboard. It was one of those things where I was a skier. I started snowboarding when I was like 11, and I had a lot of fun being in the mountains and cruising around, but when I saw the potential for fun that snowboarding has, and actually got a chance to go out and try it out with my friends, that was it. I turned my back on skiing and never looked back. And, there was never really a option to be a pure snowboarder. That was just like a fad in 1987 when I first tried it, where it was just like, oh, that'll go away. And, we've held strong ever since.
Yeah.
You start to develop your life around something like snowboarding, and that's what's a cool thing about it, is there's just so many facets to it and so many ways of being and ways of expressing yourself in the sport. And you try to find a path that's gonna like put food on the table and still let you go ride every day as much as possible.
Sure.
And that's still my priority. Like 30 years later, I'm 43 years old, and it's always been like, how can I figure out a way to go ride my snowboard as much as possible? Because for me, it's more a practice, and just gives me this feeling of freedom in my life, and that power and that connection to nature and all those things that I think are, like truly being like a fully realized human being.
Yeah.
You get caught up in the modern day staring at your phone like everybody, and you start, having to sit down a lot more. I'm a brand manager for Winter Stick Snowboards now, and I have to stare at my computer a lot. And that's an interesting life to try to balance out, where, especially I've been fortunate to be a pro snowboarder for a long time, and you spend most of your time just hanging out outside doing stuff. And, when you get swept into the other side of things, where you're sitting down and you're inside, that's a hard reality. And, I don't feel quite as alive sitting down. So I still prioritize, even over money or anything else, like, figuring out ways to be out here and go shred. Like, a bunch of people just bailed today to go to the coast to go surf. And I'm like, you know what? I have tickets, and there's a half pipe up there. And at this point, I want to go ride my snowboard every single moment I can find to go up and have some time to ride. I'm going to choose snowboarding over anything else.
Hey folks, if you're tuning in to us still, please take a minute to go to Patreon.
Wait.
What?
Is there like some question that they wouldn't still be tuning in?
Well, if they're still listening, they can go to patreon.com/the-snowboard-project.
But you're still staying still.
Still.
Like, they
might
not
have
have
just
even
listened
made
to
it
the
this
first
far.
5 minutes. Yeah, they might not have made it this far. So.
Okay.
But I just want, if you're still listening, okay, if you're listening, go to patreon.com/the-snowboard-project, and we're going to count on you guys to support an independent voice in snowboarding media. It's how we're going to keep this thing advertising free and have a voice that is not affected by the advertisers. How does a kid from Jackson it's a big mountain, it's got powder and everything. How does a kid become a professional halfpipe rider from Jackson Hole? How did you do that?
Let's see, how did I do that? Well, we had a pretty good contest series back in the day with some really supportive parents, and we did a lot of traveling. We didn't really have halfpipes back in the day. But to like really kind of step up to the next level, it was I moved and packed up a Jeep Cherokee and basically put a bed in the back of it and lived in my Jeep in here at Mount Hood, and worked for Waddell's actually, and didn't get paid, and actually hiked to the camps every single day because I couldn't afford a pass. So I think I hiked to the camp 28 times. I think I snuck on the lift a couple days and just lived in my car and dedicated myself to riding my snowboard. And that summer I really got a chance to, put in some time in a half pipe, and it really helped where I ended up the next year getting like third or second. I get third. Can't remember. I think I got second at nationals for USSA. And then that put me on the US snowboard team, and that kind of launched my career as a half pipe rider one way or the other. But it was like the dedication and like throwing it all out the window. Driving out here, I'd never lived in my car in my life. I was 18 years old, and I just like posted up here in Mount Hood and found a way to make it work and get on the hill every day. And that kind of dedication and just time, especially in those days when like nobody could really ride half pipe. There was no half pipes to ride. So if you had a chance to get in there and shred a little bit more, you definitely had an advantage over everybody else as far as learning tricks. And the only place in the world there were half pipes was Mount Hood, especially in the summer. And so that was kind of my whole way to get into it. And then as far as being on the World Cup and the rest of it, I always laugh because then, as is now, if you're a competitive half pipe snowboarder, the contests create the best half pipes in the world at any one time. We'd have a couple resorts that maintain their pipes pretty well, but if you're at the contest, that thing's going to be close to perfect, which gives you an advantage as far as training and gives you an advantage as far as people that surround you and getting inspired by everybody else, really pushing your level. And, he's doing McTwists now. Like, I got to go do McTwists on that wall or whatever. And I think that is just kind of this perpetual thing. Once you get it started, you're chasing after it, you can really elevate your abilities, even if you're a kid who pretty much only rode powder and jumped cliffs from Jackson Hole. And I've kind of reverted to that too. Like, I haven't ridden half pipe for almost a year at this point. Yeah. And it's a little bit of a learning process. It's kind of bumpy up there. Even Terry was having a hard time with it the other day, where we're just like, holy cow, that thing has got a lot of holes in it right now. And, so that's why I'm taking the weekend for a half pipe riding clinic, get my legs back and be able to do a couple tricks. Yeah. Because I still love it. Like, riding a 22-foot pipe is just, magic when you really let it rip and get going in it. You can just fly, and it's just like such a incredible feeling. And I'm still really dedicated to being in there and being able to do it.
Maybe at the age of 43, we could take a little bit of a sideline here. I want to get back to the half pipe in a second, but since you're going to go up and ride the pipe today and you have a lift ticket, you're not going to be hiking up there. Maybe you could speak just briefly to the importance of stretching. How much stretching are you going to do this morning before you ride the pipe?
Currently, I'm rolling out on the dirt in the parking lot with my nice little foam roller. And after sleeping in my car for the last 4 days on a fairly stiff pad, my lower back's starting to lock up. Driving out here from Jackson about 12 hours. I kind of set in motion the downward spiral as far as my lower back, but I'll probably stretch for 20 solid minutes. Mm-hmm. Almost everybody here, maybe not quite as aggressively as I do, but I'm really into yoga and things like that before going snowboarding. Like, some of the yoga poses that exist are really, really great ways of opening up your body and being able to actually do that method versus getting up there and just sucking. And like, for me these days in the winter especially, like, snowboarding starts an hour early these days, where I have to stretch before I go around because I can't really. If I don't stretch, I'm too tight to really get into that flow state and that higher level of riding and connection that I really love. And I don't have as good a day as if I were to just commit to being like, I'm going to get up earlier and really make sure I'm ready for this. Because And it's just that important to me to be like dedicated to be like, hey, snowboarding starts with stretching. You know, just don't go snowboarding unless you stretch. And stretching's always been a part of my routine. Since I was a little kid, my dad was way into like, hey, you got to get your body ready for this. And I think that's part of my longevity in some ways. And I should be in a lot more pain than I am, actually. Mostly because I picture myself that way. And just get ready for the day.
Cool. So what's like your best trick or what are you going to try today? Like, what is your goal for today as far as riding? Like, what kind of tricks? How big of air? What's your goal for today in your mind?
I think, we can get going. There's a pretty good little table up there that's like maybe 50 feet. It'd be nice to just kind of warm up and get to it and start spinning over that table. And in the half pipe, if it's cut again today, just in some ways, we were just trying to like do back-to-back airs that were legit airs, you know, like blasting airs and
overhead high all the way down.
Yeah, overhead high. That's it. It's been a battle, and that's how it is out here. But it's just really super bumpy, and you're just like barely hanging on. But you know, some back-to-back 540s would be nice. It'd be nice to do like a Sato flip to say I've done it. But it's been a while, and I'm pretty beat up from the race, so I might have to wait till tomorrow. Today might be a slow day. But, you know, like, I'm not throwing front nines today, I don't think.
Okay, so I mean, you just mentioned the Sato flip, and of course you won the US Open in 1990. I believe you won an overall Grand Prix Series title, too. What are the highlights, though, for you? Those are the things that the outside looking in I recognize as, you know, observing your career. But for you, where did you derive the most satisfaction from as far as being a halfpipe competitor?
Oh, wow. Satisfaction. I think... Yeah, winning the US Open in 1998 halfpipe was a pretty big moment for me where just like I was just still in disbelief in some ways. It was a funny situation where I didn't even make the finals when they first came down to it, but Terrier and Daniel Frank didn't make the finals either, so they decided they were going to take 20 people into the finals instead of 16. And I was one of those extra 4, and I'd actually beat Terrier. I think I was 17th and he was 18th. And I was so hyped by the qualifier or whatever and beating Terrier. Like, that was the best moment of my life. I was going to go home and tell all my friends forever that I beat Terrier at the US Open in the qualifier. And then they let us all into the finals, and it was just like, well, bonus round, you know, and walking away like, seriously, I won was a pretty magical moment.
And then and then Terrier got second that year, didn't he?
Yeah, it was me, Terrier, and then Todd Richards. And it's the way the contest format was. It was combined back then. It was 2 out of 3, and I always did better with the combined type scoring system because I could consistently ride at a high level and wasn't as much as like I'm going to send it and just see what happens with the like best scoring system. And if it was best scoring, Todd Richards would have won hands down. He did the first wet cat during that contest. I think he did back-to-back 9s during that contest, but he crashed on almost everything there. So it was just or at least 2 of his runs he crashed on and had one really insane run. And I remember being like, dude, Todd, that was progression of the sport. That was the coolest thing I've ever seen, you know? And, but at the same time, I'll take the win and invested that money in buying a condo in Jackson Hole and set myself up so that I could like still live this lifestyle to this day because I have a good set of renters and things like that where I just took everything I ever need from snowboarding and put it into like buying a house and trying to make it so that I could keep being a dirtbag and dedicating my life to being out here riding sideways. So that, and I think there was a couple other World Cups and things that were pretty rad to win here and there. One time I bet it was just me and Tommy Shishine, and we both had just learned like frontside 9 flips, and we were both kind of like super sketchy with doing them, and it just turned into like I'll do it if you do it type thing. I didn't think I was going to win at all. And I went down and landed my trick, and then Tommy came down and crashed on his. He was so mad at me that I bet him that, or like challenged him to do the 9 flip, and ended up winning the contest because I landed it. And that was pretty funny, just because Tommy was so mad at me more than anything. And then I think, you know, like now in the modern day, I ended up getting second behind Travis at the King of the Hill way back. And then that was pretty sweet in that venue. And then been racing like Mount Baker Bank Slalom and doing well at the bank slalom has been fun. So it's just, you know, it's an interesting world to be in snowboarding for this long and just try to come up with ways to reinvent myself and new goals where it's like, what else is cool within this culture of snowboarding that I could really be involved with and hopefully be successful at. You know, I'd love to win a rat race someday. And, you know, like, I'm still in it here. The bank slalom stuff is cool because you can still do it and not be like, dude, I'm gonna freaking kill myself trying to, you know, double cork off that jump. It's just not in the cards for me anymore. But we can race, that's for sure. So I mean, and it's a beautiful thing that snowboarding's got that kind of depth. Yeah. And even beyond that, when you move away from the industry events and the rest of it, there's always mountains to conquer and beautiful places to go and ways to, you know, like we went to Nepal with Warren Miller a couple of years ago, and those are these places you never even imagine you're going to go to, and it's because of snowboarding. And you get a chance not only to just be in those places as a tourist or whatever, but you actually get to like kind of interact on an intimate level with the mountains and the rest of it, and really kind of, you know, apply your love of riding and your skills to experience those places on this next level that most people will never experience, even local, you know, like they'd never really seen much snowboarding. I ended up leaving a snowboard at the Annapurna Sanctuary just so that all the local kids could go ride because they just didn't have access to anything like that there. And they were so stoked. And a couple of years ago, my buddy trekked back up there and said, dude, I saw your snowboard. They were riding it every day.
Nice.
You know, and that's like a pretty meaningful for me, just where it's like, how cool is that to know there's like a board that I left and there's some kid in Nepal that's like on his off day from carrying up some tourist bags out there, like slashing power lines and riding that incredible mountain.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So those things are cool for me to do that. And, you know,
so how much of your satisfaction is derived today from like your progression in the sport versus like the places you get to see and the people you get to meet?
I think, there's still things where progression still exists as far as like there's always subtle ways you can improve the way you turn. Just being up here at Mount Hood and just riding the lanes, like I'm riding down and like Euro carving down that lane as good as I've ever done it. It's just like, wow, I'm freaking railing down this mountain. And that's kind of, you know, like an interesting place to be, to just be like so focused on your turning just left and right. Cause that's the true root and true enjoyment for me, is being able to turn my snowboard left and right and like harness that energy and be on that rail and just like arc it all the way down. The other side of it, though, is definitely just kind of leaning into the idea that snowboarding goes beyond kind of the energy drink, super action sport, freaking.
No, it doesn't. No way. No, you're crazy. No way.
No.
Begins and ends with that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've been told that, and that, you know, it's this daredevil thing, and like, and I think it's a dangerous thing because as incredible as it's gotten as far as halfpipe and slopestyle and stuff, a lot of that stuff's inaccessible to people. You know, they're never going to hit those big jumps. They're never going to be able to even get to the lip of a 22-foot halfpipe. And so you're starting to kind of lessen your audience because they can't experience that thing. It looks rad. Mm-hmm. You know, that's neat, but they're super, abstracted from that situation. That's different than their experience with snowboarders. And so for me, I think it's cool to come back and come up with new ways to inspire people to go out and ride, and some of those other core reasons that are really beautiful reasons to be out there, whether it's just like I said, turn left and right. That's the core of the whole thing. And then being able to do that in a beautiful place, whether it's Breckenridge or Jackson Hole or Nepal. Like really trying to illustrate that to people of like what kind of experience you're having on your snowboard and how to, like integrate that into their lives. And the idea that for me, like snowboarding represents freedom. You really, for those moments that you get to stand on your board, you become as free as anybody in the world, and you're able to have so much power because of your harnessing gravity going down the hill, and you become a superhero in some ways. And those are, really magical experiences that I think open people's eyes and make them, in some ways, like I think snowboarding can make the world a better place, one from just like a pure expression of joy and happiness that when you get to go ride your board and be away from your phone and be away from real life in some ways and be in that present moment that snowboarding puts you into, that's what it's all about. And then beyond that, I think it's a great connector across all religions, creeds, like for me, I don't care where you're from. If you're a snowboarder, you're part of my tribe, part of my people, and you're my friend. Like, let's go ride together. And I think that's a really cool thing, like snowboarding doesn't discriminate. So
joy doesn't discriminate. Sharing of joy,
Yeah, we're here, and it's like if you look around and it's a powder day, and you see the smiles on people's faces and how blissed out they are, and we're all in it together. It's just humans having an experience on the earth. Yeah. And it's just like, there it is. Like, look, we're all here. We're all in it together. And so, like, I really believe in the power of snowboarding for that, to bring people together. And that's kind of my mission, like, I do a lot of stuff with, like, Warren Miller, and to, like, kind of express how I feel about that and how important it really is to go out and be outside and have those experiences, just to find some balance in the frenetic world, and some connection. And
right. That's a pretty high level idea for kids who are trying to take their 540s to 720s, though. I mean, how do you express that to them?
I think, it's all, in some ways, it's all a practice. And so you can take that practice of being on a snowboard and you're focused on, like, I need to do this 540 today, and you're teaching kids those skills of how to, like, really project and focus and hold that space in their mind as far as how they're going to get that trick and how they're going to refine how they take off on the lip. And that practice just in itself develops skills that those kids can take into the real world, and like, hey, I'm scared of this. I'm scared of, like paying my taxes. I'm scared of, like going to college or taking this test. But you teach, like that skill of learning the 540 and all the pieces that surround that, in order to get to that level and be able to progress yourself, can be applied to everything in your life. And so, some really high level humans that come out of snowboarding. And the other thing that I really love about snowboarding is it's just so creative and allows you to be so, individualistic and express yourself authentically. Like, this is how I'm going to do it. And the culture's always kind of supported that as, like, being who you truly are, and you're able to just do it your way, so that's a cool thing that I think I don't want to lose as far as like contests, like, oh, you didn't do that triple cork right. Watching Sage come through 2 Olympics ago and win gold, by pushing it into like, hey, I'm going to try this trick and just see if I get it, and being like, wow, that was weird. That was so outside the normal parameters, but it's like, that's where it's at. He was doing his thing and really, rising to the occasion and letting it happen, and not, kind of letting go of the, like, I have to win by staying conservative. It was more like, I'm going to win because I'm having fun. And I think that's a really cool facet to the whole thing. So.
Yeah. So when you progressed from like being a competitive rider at the highest level, competing against the best in the world, sometimes beating them, and then you kind of transitioned to, riding backcountry, riding Alaska, that kind of thing. What is the similarity between, is there some kind of correlation between what you learned in contests and then what you took to kind of big mountains and the backcountry? Where do they cross over?
I think, the crossover is the passion, no matter what, like how much you love it and how much, just like applying your skills as a snowboarder to a different situation where it's like you train so hard, half pipe and hitting jumps and being in that kind of contest situation that's a little constrained, a little man-made, and then you take that into the backcountry and you have those core skills and then you're able to apply them to that naturalistic setting and the backcountry setting. I think there's a lot more skills actually like that you can gain as a snowboarder as you progress from a contest kid into somebody that's more backcountry centric, because I always think of it in like as carpentry in some ways, where it's just like as you progress and you move into a backcountry thing, you become more like a finished carpenter. Before, you're just like a day worker and you're banging nails and putting things together. And once you get into the higher level stuff of like snow assessment and line choice and really truly being in the mountains and understanding all those facets, you have to refine your skills to this next level, and you become more like a finished carpenter, where like you're really it's all those base skills are still there, but then you really have to have a refined technique in order to be a great backcountry and big mountain type snowboard.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so like maybe you could compare like the fear of trying, let's say, the Sato flip for the first time, or like trying a new trick in the pipe, versus the fear that you have to contend with when you're sizing up a line you've never ridden on a big mountain.
Right. Yeah. I think all of that fear is a good thing. It's always something that you work with and that you recognize. And, there's so many ways to hurt yourself in a half pipe or on a jump. And, like being able to have the confidence to step over your shadow and really drop in and do it, is one thing in that kind of man-made situation. And then in the mountains, I think there's a whole nother level where you have to really listen to that gut feeling. I think it's definitely different, because riding a line in Alaska has so many other variables than like, I got to drop in, ride at the wall and do this flip and set that trick just right so they don't get hurt. But it's like there's just 1,000 more variables that you have to listen to and assess on an Alaskan backcountry line, where and if you really don't feel it, I don't think, you could die definitely trying something and landing incorrectly in the half pipe, but your consequences if things go wrong in Alaska or whatever are in some ways just a lot higher, and you have to kind of listen to those messages and internal things where you sometimes back off it, and then sometimes it's just like you truly have that confidence where you trust and you have your backup plans and your islands of safety in Alaska where you can at least diminish the risk and just don't do stupid things, but like either way they both have fear components, and like honoring and listening to that fear for a moment and then making that assessment, moving past it, is a skill for sure, and being like, okay, like I've done enough frontside 540s in my life, and I know how to get the wall, and I just gotta set like this and it'll change that, and I'll be doing a Sato flip, if I just let it rip like this and flip over. And so you're like assessing that and pushing forward into new frontiers and progressing yourself as far as what you're committing to. And, that's just part of the game. and sometimes it goes wrong and sometimes it goes right, but that's what makes it exciting. And that's really, you know, it's those places where we challenge ourselves that really, you know, like make us better humans, make us better riders. And, you know, without that challenge, like, you know, you're just kind of falling into complacency and it gets boring. You know, you want to be challenged.
Oh, hey guys, Beav here with Sullivan, and we're talking about Patreon. I know, it's one of those things that we gotta throw in there, but check this out. It's because of people like you that go and get on the internet and go to Patreon and support us for as little as, what, $2 a month?
Yeah.
It's people like you that help us do this.
Yeah, but people are like, no, it's free. It's a free podcast,
right.
Steve. We don't need to pay for this. We can get it for free.
Yeah, I know.
The way that we're going to tell these independent stories is by having people support us. Right now, we got about 108 people supporting us. Not a lot.
108?
108.
Still pretty rad.
It is pretty rad, yeah.
There's 108 people out there that are supporting us on Patreon.
Yeah.
Right on.
You know, with your support, as little as $2 a month, we can continue to push this ball downfield to continue to tell these real stories in snowboarding. You've followed this progression for 32 years about the sport. So what goals of progression do you have left? Like, what else do you have to check off? How are you going to continue to progress for another 10 years?
You know, I hit 43 and I was like, I just really want to go back into the gym so that I can get stronger, so that like the last couple of years I've been mostly just mountain bike and do like, you know, cross training stuff in the off season and then just ride my heart out. But I think, you know, when I was on the World Cup and the US Snowboard team, we were in the gym and we were seriously just super strong. And I'd like to get back to that place as somebody who's kind of older, so that I could really, really step up my game. Like on some backcountry jumps this year, it's hard because if you don't have a big crew to build like a legit jump, but I've never landed like a double cork into powder, and there's a couple things that I'm still like, yeah, no, I could do a frontside double 9, like no problem. Like I know I can do it. I just never quite gotten there. And you know, there are windows in your life where some of those things start to fade, and you're just not going to be able to do it. And that's kind of a goal of mine. And you know, I'm still pretty fired up about, you know, like bank slalom stuff. And there's Tenjin I'd like to go to. There's just starting to be a whole bunch of other bank slalom type things where it's just kind of like, kind of a combination of adventure, new places, as well as like the idea that you're like, I'm still pretty good at this. I can race with these guys. I can put one down and be up there on the podium with them. And, that kind of continues to drive me as far as, and I'm pretty amped up this year to just be extra strong. And that's like the main thing is you get older and you just got to take a little more time, preparing, but there's no reason you can't be like right there, with everybody else, I don't think.
You know, it's funny. It's like I'm older than you, actually. I'm not going to say how much older, not much. But for the first time this year, I started like working out in the gym, and I was always in the media side. But it's like I don't want to give up like my progression in snowboarding, and so therefore, you know, I'm hitting the gym too, which is like, I guess I just admitted it. So yeah, I am hitting the gym. But you know, I don't want to give up on my progression. I'm never going to do a double cork into POW. That was never one of my goals. But it's pretty cool to see that really you don't have to give up on that progression. And so then let's kind of shift gears a little bit, because you've also progressed in other ways with snowboarding. Like you started the Jackson Hole Powwow. Is that correct?
Yep, I said that. This is like, I think this was the 6th or 7th year. We actually just changed the name to the Shaper Summit out of respect for my Native American friends, and just kind of being able to really push that I into more places and and really kind of honor what it's really about. And that, for me, like at the end of the day, as a snowboarder, is just kind of a manifestation of, like, how do you, give back to this community? And part of it's just kind of bringing people together to celebrate snowboarding and snowboard design. And it's crazy. I mean, it's a really simple concept where it's a quote unquote powderboard test set up where everybody there can ride as much as possible with, like we had 150 different boards in the tent this year.
So talk us through the beginning though. Like in the beginning, where did the concept come from? And then like, what was that first event like?
In the beginning, it was really inspired by Powder Week, which is also like a ski test. Uh-huh. And Powder Magazine held it in Jackson Hole every year. And it was basically those guys showed up, and it's the worst test in the whole world in some ways, as far as like it was really, really loose. And it was basically an excuse to come ski in Jackson Hole. Those guys just like skied their faces off, and there was some semblance of a test, but it was always kind of like, are you guys testing or are you just skiing your asses off? And it was kind of like, that's a sick idea. Like, why not? And I always, being a contest kid, I was in the contests and was riding, but as somebody else that's, like a team manager or, like a trainer or whatever else, so you get to stand around a lot. You stood around a lot of contests, Mark, and didn't go snowboarding.
Yeah.
So I was like, how do you, and even like a bank slalom level thing, it's just like, you're all together and there's this great atmosphere community, but you're really worried about the contest. You go to Baker and it dumps, and you're like, take 2 runs, but you got to save your legs so you can win the contest or whatever. And you're just like, you're not snowboarding. You're waiting around to snowboard. And I was like, how do we have that contest atmosphere where everybody comes together as snowboarders, but everybody is part of the contest? Mm-hmm. And everybody rides. And that was kind of like, okay, how do we set this up so it's really easy for everybody that's at the event to like really just go out and do what we all love all together and snowboard. So inspired by Powder Week, doing a similar thing where it was like, hey, we have a bunch of boards, here's the test format, and you just grab a board, check it out. And I think one of the unique things about the powwow, actually, like the patentable device, is that I have a security guard and a way to just like free form find any board you want and go sign it out, and not having it be constrained to like, okay, here's my credit card for every time you do something if you're at a demo or whatever else, and then having somebody like upsell, no, you want this board, it's like a freedom of choice. With 150 boards in this tent, you walk in, if you're part of the event, find anything you want, put your own bindings on it, walk out of tent, ride it as much as you want. If you want 1 run, you want 5 runs, like really test it out, bring it back and don't break it, check it back in, grab something else. And so that just really focuses on people going out and riding their faces off every single time. It's all about going and snowboarding, whether they're pro riders that are at the event or my crew of testers or, the locals that get invited or people in the industry that are there. It is really about, riding as hard as you can for 3 days and finding the boards that really fit you as a rider and as an individual. And it's open that way. Call it rated radical, where everybody's got a different body type, everybody's got different size feet, and like I like soft boards, I like stiff boards. And so our concept is to like kind of try to categorize those different riders and allow them to find those boards that really fit those individuals, and then ultimately match those test results with other people, so you as a rider can come to the website and be like, hey, I'm 5'9", 170 pounds, I like stiff boards. Oh, these 3 riders are similar to me. They went through all those boards for 3 days, and these were their favorites. So I think that's a better way of kind of matching people with boards that they're going to love and heightening their experience. And so just trying to innovate the way people do tests and express it, like how boards ride. Like the Goodwood stuff's pretty cool, but it's kind of like a democracy. It's like, oh, we all really like this one kind of, but it's never been one where we're looking for that radical experience where it's like, this is the best board I've ever ridden. And like, I want to buy it now. It's like, that's what I want to see as far as the test goes. And then, it also swings around to the community effect of like, we bring in all the shapers and the designers, and they can really just kind of get inspired by one another in a format where they don't have to be necessarily competitive. Like Franco can ride with like JG from Burton or whatever, and be able to talk shop and be like, man, that's a really cool idea that you put into that board. I rode your stuff, and everybody can go back to the drawing board and be inspired by the community in general. And hopefully that raises the level of snowboard design, collectively, rather than pitting somebody against each other. It's kind of like it's encouraged to go ride other people's boards. You don't have to stand there and be like, this board's the best, you have to ride it, like, this is the best thing ever. It's more like, hey man, I rode that Franco, I rode that Winter Stick, I rode that Burton. I loved all of those. They all had elements of it, of greatness for me. And as a designer, you can take those inspirations back and put it into whatever project you're doing.
Right. So,
and that collective concept hopefully will have people as consumers have more fun on the products that we make.
So people go to the well, it's not the Powwow website anymore, but what's your current website?
Shaper Summit.
Shaper Summit website, and then you can kind of compare like your body type, your weight, or whatever, and kind of compare it to some people who are there, and then you can kind of assess maybe what's going to work for you, right?
Yeah, at least that's the idea. I'm trying to launch a one in September.
Okay.
And it's proven challenging. I'm a one-man show at that thing too. Yeah. We definitely have like rated radical results from the 30 different brands that we had there. Uh-huh. So people that like really love their boards, there's those results, and then it's actually an open format, good or bad. What I think is funny about the results is actually I put up, we rate it from like 1 to 9, 1 being sucks, this board sucks, to like 10 actually being radical. And you can go in and read all the very heartfelt reviews where people thought those boards sucked. And there's some trash talking about like, this is the worst snowboard I've ever ridden, and I can't believe you freaking even made it. What the frick is wrong with you? Stuff like that. And it's just like a very raw amount of data, and I'm sure there's a huge successful business that I could build out of it. At the moment, it's more about just the event as it happens. All of the feedback and the test results initially go to the designers and the brands, so they can understand what's going on with their boards from our testers and riders, and then secondarily, it's just like, I'm going to make this available to the public in September, and that's about it. So that thing continues to develop, but what's most important for me is the community that comes together every year, and we really have this amazing tribe of shapers and riders that it's just, I can't believe how well it runs and how stoked people are, just, but it comes down to that simple fact, like, hey, you got to go snowboarding for 3 days in Jackson Hole. Like, what else do you want?
So, I mean, it's not open to the public, correct? You have to actually qualify to go to the Shaper Summit. How do you qualify?
It's an invite-only thing, mostly because I can't handle more than about 120 people. Mm-hmm. And it's also just kind of a curated thing as far as like, just making sure that people are super passionate about snowboarding and they're going to take care of the equipment, because we don't have enough staff or people eyeballs on things to like really take care of people that are going to destroy equipment or be a pain in the ass. So it's kind of more and more lately too. It's also geared towards the smaller craft shapers like Winterstick and Franco and Mountain Local came out last year. We got Telos, all these kind of micro brands that you maybe never heard of, but that are on the up and up. And then, of course, we have Burton and Never Summer, and we have Genton Stick. And I try to bring in, as many of the actual brands as possible so we can really test the boards and find the ones that shine. Yeah. And so a lot of the time it's mostly like the brand gets like a spot for sure, and then it's up. They get about 2 or 3 more people that can come with them, depending on if like they just basically like, hey, can I bring my buddy here? And I'm just looking for people that can give me great test results and feedback, because that's the point. Like, I rode that board, and somebody writes down like, this board was good, it was fast, it turned. It's like, well, that doesn't really help the designer to understand it. So I try to curate people that are good at writing reviews and expressing how they feel about the boards. And we've come up with some concepts. Part of the reason I wanted to move into the Shaper Summit name was like the Never Summer guys were kind of like, dude, we should do this in Colorado. And there's some concepts being tossed around where we could do a public demo that's not necessarily so test result driven, but has like the security guard type concepts, and you pay to get in. You pay $50 to be part of that demo for the day, and we just have like that ability for a select group of people to be able to ride a bunch of different boards. But the Jackson scenario is just a kind of a unique one, where we have a huge tent. We have Jackson Hole, the best ski resort in North America, that's got like every kind of snow condition, every kind of terrain you could possibly test a board on. So it's kind of a perfect storm there as far as like having the event at Jackson Hole. But I think there are ways where we can open it up to the public. And I do, on top of the test itself and the 3 days of being on snow, we have what I call Shred Talks, which is open to the public. And every year I invite 3 or 4 people to do kind of a TED Talk type thing that's snowboard focused. So we've had like Mikey Bassett like tell his whole life story as a snowboarder and photographer, and we've had JG come in from Burton. We've had Jeff Grell, who invented the high back binding. Sure. He's a wealth of historical information, and I try to make that night, it's like 2 hours of people talking about snowboarding and telling their stories. But SHRED stands for snowboarding history, art, entertainment, design. So I try to pick like 3 or 4 people that kind of fall in those categories that talk about their new designs, or where snowboarding's going, or where we had a cool talk on like how transceivers were invented and how they've been improved over the years from Arva one time. And so that's a cool thing that the public can really be a part of. And then we usually like have an art show too, so that all that stuff's like open to the public. And then the test itself is just, I can't handle too many people. It just turns into chaos. So that's why it's invite only. But
I'm sure you have a lot of demand beyond your capacity these days, because it now has been pretty well publicized. And I think at least word on the street is that it's an amazing time.
Yeah, and it just comes down to like going snowboarding with your friends, like keeping it simple. And like Baker's fun, going to the US Open's fun, but we do a lot of standing around. And at the Shaper Summit, we don't stand around. Yeah. It's like, let's go ride. And that's just been my whole life. Like every single moment, like how can I maximize the amount of time I stand on my snowboard? And it's worked out pretty good so far, to kind of keep dedicated to that concept where it's like, I'm a snowboarder. That's what I do, and I have a constellation like with my company Avalon 7 and Winterstick and other things that I've built my life around snowboarding. And at the end of the day, I definitely prioritize snowboarding over making more money or working more to the advantage of those brands or whatever. It's just kind of like, no, man, I got to hold space, and I got to balance this out with being able to be on the mountain, because that's the whole reason I'm doing any of it, is to be out here and be sliding sideways.
Okay, so final question. You've lived through all different aspects of the sport. You've experienced a whole dynamic range of experiences, and everything from competitions to big mountain lines to being featured in Warren Miller movies and having your own event. Looking back on things, is there anything that you would do differently?
Looking back on things as far as the way I've run my snowboard career, my life, I think, like you could always hope for being able to train harder for the Olympics, or I had a girlfriend like cheat on me while I was in Europe, and I ended up breaking my collarbone, and then I broke my ankle immediately following that, trying to like get over some of that, and that kind of banged out my brain. So I wish I could go back and tell myself to just like forget all of that and try to stay on target and not blow it out. But I don't think I'd change a day of my life, honestly. And so I really confidently could sit here and be like, like I made all the right choices, and all those choices were focused on like riding my snowboard, and then that joy of being a part of this community, and like just trying to squeeze every last ounce of being just like manifesting as much of being a snowboarder as possible. Like, one of my greatest honors is like, I got to do the art for the legendary Mount Baker Bank Slalom. That's like, just like some random thing I did. And I just designed a couple more graphics for Winterstick, so on the art side of things, I'm starting to have some more opportunities, and snowboarding is just great like that, because there's so many creative opportunities and so many places for you to go and explore and be like, oh, maybe I can, write this article, or maybe I can do a podcast, or maybe I can, beyond being an athlete. And that's definitely like the challenge to me at this point of being 43 is like, where do you go from here? Like, do you go be a guide? Do you go film some more? And some of it's kind of like, are we doing this again? Like we're really making another movie or whatever else. And it's kind of like, what's going to progress, like how I express my love. That's kind of what I think. Like, I love snowboarding more than anything. And it's kind of like, this next winter, how can I express that to the world, whether it's just personally or on a public venue of like inspiring people to go snowboarding more. And that's the challenge, just get creative to be and continuously reinvent yourself. And I think, as I've gone, I've had a lot of lessons and ups and downs and things like that in my career, and a lot of successes and a lot of heartbreaks. And, and it's all been so rewarding and so worth it to really build my life around the snowboard lifestyle. It's been great. And, it's not for everybody. Sometimes the kids I've inspired to be pro snowboarders, I see struggling, and they don't really have any other skills in some ways. And so that I'm always kind of encouraging them to like really branch out and be like, well, you should be, like be the best athlete you can be, but at the same time, like take that energy you have now and like put it into being a filmmaker, or put it into being a graphic designer if you want to stay in snowboarding. And that's like the kind of the scary thing, because we've built up this idea like pro snowboarder, like you're set, and then all of a sudden you get hurt and you're not set, and you didn't go to college and you're kind of screwed.
Yeah, it's like some people. That breaks my heart. Yeah, some people ate their dessert before their vegetables. As far as like they get like all that gratification or whatever, and then they're 26 or 27 with a couple of bad knees and no rudder in life. Of what to do next. And so that is a challenge.
So that's like in a line in Alaska where it's like, where do you really want to end up? And being able to like create your future and foresee, like imagine where your life path can go. And, there you go. You can, take those skills from riding down a line in Alaska and consciously like apply them to like, okay, man, like if this goes bad and I crash on this big jump, like what am I going to do next? And so you have your other avenues and your islands of safety that you can go to, but being aware of that, but also but snowboarding has so many facets that you can get into and still express how much you love it, and at least I've found that, and I've been just super fortunate. And I'm also like an idiot still sleeping in my car here, doing whatever I can, as a dirtbag to make it happen. And maybe some people aren't willing to go that far and that extreme to be a part of it anymore. They just kind of relax. But I always feel like the more I put into snowboarding, the more I get out of it, and I'm always like happy with going out and making it happen. It's always worth the effort for me. And I'm just, like I said, 1987, since the day I stood on it, I was like, this is going to be my life. And it's worked out pretty well so far.
Cool. Well, thank you very much, Rob Kingwill. That was a very nice conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, man, much appreciated. Thanks for the call. I'm glad to be on the podcast.
Yeah, and let's see some back-to-back air. Well, I won't see them, but do back-to-back airs today, huh? Like all the way down the pipe, 8 to 10 out.
Yeah, that would be nice. I just, like the ultimate dream every day is to do a good method. I don't care how good you are. There's always that moment where you like, you get a really good one. That's kind of like the ultimate goal on the daily, even for the best of the best. And that's kind of going to be my goal today, is to like really clack out a nice stylish method.
Nice.
We're gonna get after it. So I better get to stretching though.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for your time. I appreciate it, Rob. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. Do it.
Bye bye.
On behalf of Mark Sullivan and the Beeve, thanks for listening to the Snowboard Project. Remember, ride fast, take chances, dream big, and take action. And for God's sake, don't be a... Don't forget to support advertising-free snowboarding media at patreon.com. The Snowboard Project. The Snowboard Project. The Snowboard Project.